Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Daily Maverick Money Sense webinar, our last for the year. I'm your host, Neesa Moodley, and today with me I have two excellent personal finance experts, and the three of us are going to try to guide you through how to manage your money this December. So I have with me Farzana Botha, who is segment manager at Sanlam Risks and Savings, and Doret Jooste, head of money management at Standard Bank. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Neesa.
Neesa.
So, just before we started, I was looking up because the girl in charge of promotions asked me, are people going to know what's Care Dezemba? And I said, I'm not sure I know. So I looked it up, and Care Dezemba means it's December time, it's time to relax, it's time to just let loose, party starts, party season. The problem with that is people tend to be less disciplined when it comes to their money. So last year, Farzana, I had spoken to you about managing December money budgets. And one of the things we talked about was setting a holiday budget. How do you start? Where do you start?
I think that's the key thing is to start, right? I think the big thing is that a lot of people go in that very premise of Care December, that there is no budget. It's now time, we lived within our means all year and we have extra money through bonuses or whatever, or even planned savings. And you get to December and you're just like, it's time to live freely. So I think the key thing is to change that perception going into December this year. I think, yes, it's very, very possible for me to enjoy my holidays, but how can I do it in the most intelligent way that all this money that I have can last, can go into January in a better position? So the idea is to start reframing the mind to plan for December spending as opposed to just being free.
Doret?
Yeah, I completely agree with Farzana. I'm thinking about like two things, maybe on a practical side that people can start considering. So, lots of the banks have got budget manager app tools on the digital platform. So at Standard Bank, we've got a budget manager where you can actually plan for your spend categories and set limits to it. So then as you go and you spend, you actually get spending reminders, how close you are to your limit, etc. So that might also help with discipline. And then the other thing that is potentially useful in a December period to use is your rewards points. So again, we've got U count, and what our family typically does is the last few months of the year, we save our U count points and we use that to purchase fuel. So it takes care of our December fuel expenses. You can also use it to buy groceries or, any festive gifts, etc. So just some practical things to think about. It is doable. It's just to put your mind to it. And I think to the point now, actually planning and keeping track of stuff.
And I think part of it is not, you both said planning, and I like that, and that is true enough. But I think it's also about realizing that you're not just planning for 1 month, because December is a long month, because a lot of people start getting paid now if they haven't got paid already. And that money has to stretch to the end of December and beyond. It's almost an 8-week period that you're stretching this money over. And it's quite easy to fall into that trap of spending it all wildly between now and New Year's, and then eating baked beans and toast for January. So what are some of the considerations that people need to take into account? One of the key things I like to remind readers about is school spending that comes up at the beginning of January if you've still got school going kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe if I can go just quickly, I think tomorrow we got Black Friday coming up. So things around maybe things to spend, Neesa, to your point around school supplies. Maybe there's some nice specials you can think about to pick up this calendar still and tomorrow with the Black Friday deals, so that you're prepared in January for things like that. Even like festive gifts, so Christmas gifts, is the opportunity for the kids to maybe get, a nice bag or a new space case or pencil case as part of their Christmas gift from family members. So things like that, just to help you in the end spend or stretch your rands.
I'm laughing because I remember giving my stepson a pencil case one year and he was not impressed.
Okay, so no pencil cases then.
No, he wanted a proper toy or gift. But yes, I do think that's important. One of the other things we've seen, Farzana, over the last few years, monitoring, we're going into a slightly different topic from December spending, but Black Friday spending. We've seen consumers shifting from buying more expensive, larger items to actually buying household staples like groceries because they're trying to manage that pinch.
100%, I agree with you. And that's actually a finding in my own space, in the consumer finance space, where because people are being so pressed financially, this opportunity to spend on Black Friday and get deals, there's an inclination towards your consumer goods, your basic needs, groceries. And to be honest, those deals are some really, really good deals. And one of the things that we've always advocated for is because you're going to consume a lot more during December period. Everyone's at home at the same time, you're hosting, you have extended family over, and they say December, January is the longest year of your life because it does feel like that. So you have to plan for that. So actually buying in bulk as early as possible can avoid you overspending in December because things are priced a little bit more during that time because of the scarcity. You're traveling between provinces and the provinces know they're expecting all of that tourist foot traffic. So things are a lot more expensive. So if you can bulk buy and use an opportunity like Black Friday to buy those basic goods, it can carry you through to January. And like Doret said as well, things like school stationery, that's a huge consideration when you get to January. So if you can take care of that this side of the year, then it allows you some financial freedom as you go into the new year.
And then, Doret, how do I manage things like I want to say meal planning because um, I don't know if it's a personal Neesa thing or if it's a general thing, but because December is like family time and there's memories and childhood memories, I have these ideas in my head that at December I've got to have monkey nuts and mealies and watermelon and Baker's all choice assorted,
Of
the big
course.
box, which is going for like 350 in some places.
That's a gift in itself, right? The price of those biscuits is a gift in itself.
So, Doret, how do I manage that?
Nisa, that's a difficult one because I think, in December there's lots of like emotional memories, and food is usually such a big part of that. But maybe things like, especially when you're hosting. So family's coming over, friends are coming over, have everybody contribute to the meal. So everybody brings a dish and maybe a snack. Maybe some are brave enough to bring some of those expensive biscuits. And then, everybody contributes to the drink. So it's a very festive,
Yeah,
outing, but actually, yes, everybody contributes. So that's maybe some of the practical things.
absolutely. And I think also getting into the routine or the discipline of actually planning your holiday meals will go a long way towards helping to manage that budget. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then in terms of managing that budget, I'm going to say budget quite a lot this tonight, but in terms of managing that budget, Farzana, let's talk about how to get the whole family on board. How do you get the kids to buy into the fact that actually we can't all go abseiling this December, or we can't do everything everybody in the family wants to do, so there's got to be compromise.
100%, Lisa. And I think it's a conversation we've had on other occasions where if you don't play open cards with your kids and your spouse and your extended family, you're going to end up carrying a financial burden that's going to put a lot of pressure on the relationship as well as your finances. So if you've been having conversations with your children about your financial position, it would be that much easier to bring up what you can and can't do during the holidays. And if you haven't, it's a good time to start to be as open as possible to say this is all we have to be able to use for certain activities. And then instead of making it sound like a negative thing, what you can do is try and brainstorm with the family. What are some of those activities that we can do that would cost us the least amount of money, but would give us the most amount of fun or a day out? And there's a lot of things that you can do that will allow you to step away from the conventional shopping malls and pricey events where you can do them together and brings families together. So it starts with that dialogue and treating your child as a core member of the family and helping them to understand that this is what we have, this is the decisions we need to make together, and then helping them to pick those things and feeling like they're a part of that decision-making journey as well.
And then Doret, I'm going to toss one to you. I'm anticipating, I'm pretty sure there are a few viewers who are thinking, I'm not going to tell my child all about my money. How does that conversation work? Because it also will depend, I think, on the age of the child. I think what you reveal to an 8-year-old child would be very different from the conversation with a 16-year-old.
Absolutely. So I think, I mean, definitely it needs to be age appropriate, but the thing around like understanding the value of money, and I mean, that sounds very like intricate, but just understanding that things cost money, and you know, mommy and daddy work, we only get a certain portion of money, and with that we need to pay for everything. So for your clothes, for the electricity, for the house, etc. And I mean, you can have that conversation in more complexity, you know, the older your kids get. But I think two important pieces is just understanding things cost money, and we only have a limited amount that we need to make choices around and decide what's better for us to spend. And maybe that's also a good conversation point to say, how do you weigh up different things? What do you actually get from it? And then I think also an important point is to start saving, talking about savings. So the whole thing around, you know, delayed gratification, that it's not no, it's not now. And why is it important to save? What can we do when we save money? We can buy more things or a bigger thing a bit later because we waited. That's also important to start introducing. So it's not always, you know, we can't, but it's we are actually making decisions and choices to be able to do more at a later stage.
With what we have. I was smiling when you said we've got to pay for electricity because it made me think of I think it's a meme or video that normally comes up around Christmas time where the parents are like, oh, you want presents here? And then they stick the gift bows on the light switch and the fridge and all the things around the house that parents have to pay for that kids just take for granted.
It's a
So
good way to bring the message home.
So Lionel says he usually buys all the school-related items in December, and that works well for him. I think it does. I have to say my personal experience was the one year I went in December and I stocked up and I got all the school things and I was so proud of myself. And then in January, like the week before school started, I was so sad because everything went on sale. I was like, oh no. So maybe, you know, also an idea to think of just setting aside that money for that January's back to school sale so that you are better prepared. We are hoping for live questions. So if you have any questions, please shoot them through. One of the other things is about travel over the December period and managing your travel plans so that they're not wildly out of control. I mean, and a lot of people tend to go to family over the festive season, especially if they don't live near home, Joburg, Durban, Cape Town. Farzana, how do we manage that when we are now either hosting or we're guests in somebody else's house over the festive season?
Yeah, that's a very important topic, Neesa. And one of the things that we found in our recent years in research is that during the December period, that's the most amount of strain that couples and families tend to have from an emotional perspective. And I think it comes from that whole scheduling thing and moving from house to house and being able to manage that schedule. And I think the first and most important thing is to prioritize, right? There are some people that you absolutely have to see, like if you're going to another city, like if I have to go to KZN to visit family, obviously I need to see my core family, and then I have all the friends and all the work friends and so there's that outer circle and there's that inner circle. So if you can collectively decide what are the priorities in terms of these are the people that are special to me, this is where I need to be, then, you know, you make that the core of your travel and everything else should be if I can, then I will. And that will take a lot of pressure off. And also, if you're getting to a certain location, invite people to you. So you don't spend all that time on the road. You don't spend all that money going out to try and see that. So it is a lot of communication. It's a lot of dialogue. Again, it's a lot of planning, but it will, for your mental health, for your family's safety, for your financial well-being, it helps to have a very, very solid plan of priorities when it comes to travel as well.
And then, Doret, I'm gonna ask you about managing debt over the festive season, because we were talking about how, I think wallets get loose and inhibitions go out the window. I think a lot of people actually just kind of like, oh, I'll just use my credit card and I'll worry about it later. What does the bank see in terms of that behavior?
Definitely, Neesa. I think it's very important. So in terms of credit card, I think just the mere fact that we've got virtual cards, it's not a matter of just leaving your card at home and then you don't spend, because we've got our money easy accessible everywhere we go. In terms of a credit card specifically, I mean, there are things like 55 days free interest. There are things like a budget facility that you can use. So if you absolutely need to use it, I mean, there are ways that you can actually save on interest and pay it back more. But I think in general, again, it comes back to that point around staying on track and keeping track of your spending. So where you can use a budget facility or a budget tracker, like to keep track of your spending, that's very important. And then also, I think, while I was preparing for our chat, I was also thinking about, when people really feel the burden, we go to, key December, and we think about all this, the festive period and enjoyment. But there's a lot of people that are actually financially stressed even going into December. So there it is to reach out to your bank or your credit provider early on and make arrangements, because there are definite solutions that providers have that people are not always aware about. So the best thing is, make contact early, make that decision and actually have that conversation, because then your bank can also support you and you can have a less stressful December period.
I think one of the things there is, I'm hearing you, and it's sounding very much like you're talking to the people who have financial constraints and maybe might not be able to meet all of their commitments in December, so need to reach out for help and make arrangements. And I fully agree with that. But I think there's also a caution to be voiced about debit orders over the festive season, because I know this very large medical scheme we all probably use, that it's very fond of over December saying, sorry, we're moving your budget, your debit order forward by like 10 days or 4 days or 5. And it's always a surprise to a lot of people because they haven't actually expected that.
Absolutely. So I think there it is to go back into your digital app, and you can actually go and look at what happened last December. And I mean, that's also a good point to say, like, what happened with debit orders, maybe where did I overspend that I shouldn't, and what was the stuff I needed to carry over in January, just to get a sense of that. So absolutely to time that debit orders correctly, but also make sure you've got sufficient funds available for it. And I mean, using the digital tools that you've got to make your life easier. It takes a bit of planning, but once you've set it up, it runs automatically, and it can just take off the pressure.
And then Judith says her children get to plan and budget for a weekend of meals. They have to provide 3 meals a day for 2 days. She gives them money for the weekend. I really like this, Judith. My boys are going to do this. And it's taught them about the cost of food. I have teenage boys. Can you imagine? So that's one great way to do it. And then Nosheen says she's heard about the 70 rule in budgeting. Farzana, can you elaborate on that?
70 rule? Is they
Yeah.
talking about 70-30? Is it the 70-30?
It sounds like, I think, I know the 50-30.
So where your wants versus needs type of thing.
Yeah.
And then that also then speaks to what Doret was saying about using digital tools, because I mean, ideally, you do have a good sense of what your monthly expenses are, right? And they're no different in December, except you have all these additional expenses that come from your wants and the things that you are wanting to do during December. So if you know that you have these debit orders and the 70% of your money needs to go to these needs, these primary needs, then you could even use your digital tools to be able to create multiple accounts. Like myself, as a client of the Blue Bank that Doret works for. I have multiple accounts, and so for my debit orders, my account is here, and then the money that I have for the extra 30%, I can move into a different account with that card that I use for spending. If I know that I'm someone who gets like, a person who diets very strictly, and then you get to a buffet and there's so much sweets, and then suddenly you just go like, and then you eat everything in sight. That's how people see December sometimes. And if you're going to be that way, then while you're in your senses, change your credit card limit, make it smaller, so that even if you know you're going to go a little bit wild, you have an upper limit to your wild. So that's how you manage your 70/30. You make sure you take care of your priorities and you give yourself room, but in a different space to be able to be free so that you don't feel the effects of that in your primary areas that you need to meet your needs.
So I see they've run a poll in the discussion chat that's online about how prepared viewers feel for their December budget, and 54, oh, sorry, that dropped to 50% feel somewhat prepared. I have an idea, but there are still a few gaps. And 36% say they're not prepared at all. They haven't even started planning yet. So I hope that this webinar will spur you into action, and you can afterwards sit down and draw up a plan using the tips that Farzana and Doret are sharing with us. Doret, there's a viewer who wants to know, I assume this is over the festive period, what would be better to use, a credit card facility or an overdraft facility?
This is maybe a strange advice from a banker, but neither, if you have the choice. But I mean, I think overdraft versus credit card, I mean, to keep it simple, it's really different in terms of the way it's supposed to be used or how it was designed to be used. So for example, overdraft, as your salary or your monthly income comes in, it actually helps to pay back that overdraft. So your repayment is automatic. And typically it's got a lower limit than compared to credit card. What credit card offers you is, like I mentioned, that 55-day interest-free period that you can actually charge to credit card, or you can charge amounts to your credit card. If you pay it back within 55 days, you actually don't pay any interest. There's also a budget period, or a budget facility on it. So what you can do is typically, if you remember like the speed point and what happens there, it asks you straight or budget. If you select budget, you can actually select a period over which you want to repay that amount. Typically, it should be used for bigger amounts, so not your groceries, etc. But what then happens is you repay a fixed installment over that month. So it also gives you that type of flexibility and repayment option versus the overdraft, which doesn't really have that.
But again, we are cautioning you shouldn't be relying on credit for the festive season. There was something else I wanted to touch on. Oh, bonuses. So I don't know, it feels like salaries have been going backwards. So bonuses are like, I feel like it's something of the past, but I'm hoping there are people out there who are still getting bonuses, or maybe who have saved for the festive season. What are some of the ways they can put that money to good use, Farzana?
Oh, one of the things we like to say is always pay your future self first. So if you're going to get a bonus, and like you rightfully said, salaries are going backward. Now you want to move forward, and the only way to do that is when you get into a cash surplus, pay your future self by putting something away for your future self. And that could be any type of product that allows you to earn interest, something like a tax-free savings account, even a money market account with your bank. And that allows you to put some money away and earn interest on that. So your money is working for you. And then also put some money aside for your immediate things like your December things, and then some of your short-term goals. So don't just see the bonus as one cash amount that you're just going to blow. Try and segment it into things, your present needs, your future needs, your medium to long-term needs, and cater to all those things. And at least once you get through the short term, you won't have any regrets and you'll still have some money. So try and make sure you meet the needs of all the versions of yourself that there are.
Absolutely. I think one of the years, I haven't done this in a long time, but one year, once upon a time, I actually contacted like the regular debit orders. So I paid the debit orders for December and January upfront with the bonus money. So that was like a load off that I didn't have to worry about. And then I had
Yeah.
money that I could spend knowing that there wasn't going to be these big debit orders at the end of those 2 months. Yvonne says, and I feel for you, Yvonne, she says, what about grandparents who end up hosting the entire family and are like surviving on pensions?
Yeah,
Doret?
I think I think Lisa, it actually speaks to your earlier point. So that that taboo subjects, we sometimes just need to talk about it. So elderly people or grandparents when they're hosting a family, I mean, talk to the kids about it. Say, guys, we only have a limited budget, and what plan are we going to come up with to actually enjoy ourselves, but also make sure that we can financially like meet all our commitments. It's often the difficult part of that, or the most difficult part, is introducing the conversation. Once the conversation is there and everybody realizes that everybody is actually feeling the pinch. I mean, we mentioned now around salaries not increasing. Talking about financial strain and pressure, I mean, it's something everybody can relate to. And especially with your family, sometimes it is difficult, but it is important to have the conversation and then make a plan.
And then let's talk about gifts because Christmas is the time of giving and receiving. And sometimes some of us are giving more than we're receiving, and we're receiving debt more than we're getting anything else. What are some of the ideas around how to manage that so that it doesn't put me severely out of pocket? Off the top of my head, I would say Secret Santa, and maybe I think in some families it's a unspoken thing that only the children get gifts because not everybody actually needs a gift. Farzana?
Those are some of the basic ones. And then one of the things that I saw, especially when I was traveling lately as well, is that thrifting culture is so big in some of the other countries. There's lots of thrift stores, and you could buy something really, really nice for a fraction of the price. It's just that it's used, it's pre-loved. So it's okay to be creative in your gift giving. It doesn't have to be something brand new. It doesn't have to be expensive. We have things like Facebook Marketplace. We've got charity shops. So if you want to put thought behind a gift, you can do it by shopping intelligently at all these other, it doesn't have to be mainstream outlets where you're spending a lot of money. So you can give thoughtful gifts through just being a little bit savvy in terms of where you can find it. Another way is to use your rewards points, as Doret said earlier. So some of your rewards programs allow you to get vouchers. You can give vouchers. Vouchers are a useful gift. So you can materialize some of those rewards points and get some vouchers, and that makes less pressure on your pocket, but it's really a thoughtful gift, and you're giving something that you actually earned. So
Yes.
is a
I
considerate
think many
choice.
years ago, the advice used to be make something by yourself, a handmade gift. So I can crochet, but there's only so many scarves you can give out at
Yeah.
December in that heat.
Some pot holders, maybe.
Pot holders.
You can teach the gift of crocheting, Neesa, because I would love to learn.
So we've talked about rewards programs. We've talked about sharing the conversation with your family. What's a budget cleanse? Does either one of you want to take that on, a budget cleanse, where you basically at the beginning of I think Farzana, you actually taught me about this last year.
About the cleanse, so budget
Yes.
cleanse, yeah. So ideally, it's sort of similar, and I think we used the analogy when we spoke about it earlier in the year. It was like how you look at your diet, right? And you look at the areas in which you seem to be over indulging or like breaking your diet badly through behaviors, and you look at those things and you see, okay, how can I get myself on track by changing through micro behaviors towards the body, for example, that I want when it comes to fitness. And it's the same with your finances. If you know that there are certain behaviors, there are certain patterns of financial decisions that you make that are leading to a certain consequence, then when you start in the new year, consider that from a bird's eye view and then zoom in, write down these things that you could potentially change that would get you to a different outcome, and then use that as the new behavior. So that's essentially what you're doing. You're trying and cutting out unnecessary expenses where possible. You try and squash a little bit of debt, and that's also useful when it comes to your bonuses as well. If you can minimize those high interest debts more than any interest that you could earn in some other product, then it actually makes sense to actually squash that debt and give yourself the chance to go into the new year with a cleaner budget, a cleaner balance sheet, because you're not bringing all those things through.
Absolutely. And I think I like the word you used at the beginning of that explanation where you said micro changes, because I think micro changes are a lot less intimidating and easier to implement and stick to going forward. What about there's people who go on holiday in December. What about like taking on a what is that word they use, a side gig over that festive season to sort of bring in an extra income?
That's a very good idea, Neesa. And I think, I mean, in general, it's good to encourage and motivate people, especially when they're feeling financial burden, is, what is a potential skill or habit you have? Like Farzana mentioned the crochet now. So, I mean, I'll pay you to teach me how to crochet. Things like that through platforms these days, you can actually advertise and you can connect and you can potentially earn an extra rand or two. And I mean, it's also very aspirational. We see in the younger generations coming through that entrepreneurial spirit. So the sooner you can actually get into it, I mean, potentially you can, transition into a full-time self-employed entrepreneur with your own business. So there's definitely lots of pros to it. And if you start small, I mean, you give yourself time and opportunity to actually build it up over time and find your feet.
100%. And I think, actually, I just wrote an article about clearing out your clutter for cash. And I think over December is a great time to sort of stop and review because a lot of us are, I want to say, oversubscribed. I mean, with clothes that we don't wear, with items around the house we don't use. I saw a comment on social media this morning where somebody said, I'm immigrating. And I can't believe how much money I'm getting from all these things I'm selling that I actually didn't need. I think that's consumerism, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm thinking about, I mean, just while you guys were talking, Farzana was mentioning regifting, and I'm thinking about all the books I have that, I read it. I'm not going to read it again. That is potentially things I could regift or even like take to a secondhand bookstore. So it's things like that, practical ways that, things we might see every day that we're not thinking about. Just changing perspective actually unlocks that opportunity.
Yeah, you
So
should consider it as a type of exchange, really. Like you want something new and you have something someone else can use. So sell it, exchange it, go to the thrift store, and that way it makes it fun and it takes a bit of pinch out of the pocket as well. And you're getting rid of the clutter. So it's a win-win all around. Yeah.
100%. Judith has brought up an excellent point about how do you help your domestic worker over the festive season. A lot of people do a 13th check or a bonus, or some people go out and buy like a package. What is your advice around that?
maybe if I can answer that, I think, I mean, planning there again is very important. So ideally you want to start early in the year. So going into 2025, you already start helping, your domestic helper put away a little bit every month so that she has got that money to access and it's her own money. Over and above that, giving a bonus or 13th check is, I mean, it's always helpful. You can also help her with everything that, I mean, we're talking about now. So I think if we can do that planning, it also helps. And then buying basic groceries, again, I mean, we mentioned Black Friday tomorrow. Again, there's like great deals on some of these hampers or, bulk buys that you can actually use and then potentially give to your helper over December.
Absolutely. I was listening there was an interview on SAFM this afternoon, and the guest, John Cherry, was actually saying that he thinks that a lot of the retailers in South Africa, particularly, use Black Friday as an opportunity to get rid of old stock or stock that hasn't been moving. And that made me think, oh my goodness, I better check all the expiry dates if I'm buying, canned items or something like that. So I think that's something to be aware of. Oh, what else is there? Oh, Farzana, is there anything we've missed that you want to I see our viewers are not really sending many questions in. I don't know if that means that we have been so prolific in our advice that they have no questions left.
Yeah, I think it's just a point that I touched on throughout about the mental and psychological aspect of December, because while we're also speaking about how people can manage their money better, there are a lot of people who go through periods of depression and sadness because of lack. And then there are a lot of people who put themselves in very challenging positions through overextending themselves financially to try and bridge that lack just to keep up with, as they say, the lifestyle creep. And those things. And so, if there are people who are going through that, it's important to put things in perspective to know that, look, December is, yes, the festive periods. It's about a week. It's just over a week, really. And so, yes, you might want to, put yourself through the stress of getting into debt so that you can keep up with everyone. But I think you should rather prioritize your well-being for your future, for next year, for getting yourself into a better position and think beyond the festive period instead of allowing yourself to fall into the trap of festive financial spending and debt. It's a very difficult one. A lot of families struggle with this. And then in January, February, we're doing so many conversations in consumer finance to try and help people to manage their debt and get out of the trap that they end up in December. So I think the core of this is to just become aware of that. Don't allow yourself to slip into patterns and to keep up with the Joneses. That is just going to put you on a back foot in the new year. So rather build for something better for the new year. Focus on that than just having a financial festive spend and then having a difficult new year.
Absolutely. And I think if we expand into that a little bit, there are a lot of retailer tricks that you need to be aware of over the festive season. The bright lights, the loud music, and I think the music is intentionally louder and more vibey so that you kind of tend to forget where you are, almost like the casinos where you come out and you're like, oh my goodness, it's nighttime. What? So, so Doret, are there any retailer tricks that you think viewers need to watch out for? I know one of the ones is that the sale items are usually eye level, but if you look at the top shelf and the bottom shelf, those are often actually better priced.
Okay, that's a good one. I didn't know about that one. I think, I mean, some of the tricks that I've been caught myself and only realized after is, buying in bulk versus if you look at the weight, for example, and you look at
Yes,
smaller packets and you actually calculate it, the bigger pack is more expensive. So I think that's just practical things all around, whether it's Black Friday or festive season or not. Um, but I think also, maybe like going into a shopping center, know what you're going to go in to buy, have your list, and stick to the list. Maybe that also helps. But I think just also to come back to Fazana's point around, lots of pressure and people feeling that in general, there's a lot of shame around money and finances. It's not an easy topic to talk about, especially to close family and friends, because there's a large sense of I should have done better, I should have known this, will people feel less of me if I actually share what's going on really in my finances? But I think, I mean, just using today's opportunity to Fazana's point as well, to say you're not alone. There's many people that feel this, and that's exactly why we're talking about it today, to increase awareness and actually open up the discussion to say, if there's certain things you need to do to set yourself up for future success, you absolutely have every right to do that, and you shouldn't feel ashamed about that at all. So I think just that encouragement and just to say you're not alone. There's a lot
absolutely.
of understanding for it. Yeah.
And Nosheen says, Farzana, you can also, as an employee, you can reach out to your company or employee wellness programs if you need support over this period. I actually think the South African Depression and Anxiety Group says that they see a huge spike in the number of calls that they get over the festive season. But on a lighter note, Doret, when it comes to the shopping list, I think my advice is maybe stick to a pen and paper shopping list because I use a shopping note thing on my phone. So all the groceries I tend to buy are there, and then I tick and untick as I go along. But it does mean that sometimes David catches me and I'm like, what do you mean? Marshmallows is on the list. Look.
The tricks.
I must
The
say,
things you should not do.
I find that because I have this tendency towards the sweet aisle when I go to the store as well, shopping online is just saving me from temptation. So yeah, if you know that you're going to go and get overwhelmed by the lights and the music and the crowd and the sales signs, just shop online and compare prices. Like when you're already in the mall and the one store is on the one end and the other store is on the other end, you don't want to go to both stores to check where it's cheaper. You just buy it where you are. But if you're online, you can actually check, am I actually paying what I should be paying for this, or am I getting, a bad deal? So shop online if you know you have a tendency towards overindulgence. And you find like on Tuesdays, there's this thing called Market Tuesdays on Uber Eats, and all the vegetables are half price. So Tuesday morning, the minute I get up, I'm like hitting all the veggies in my
Okay.
cart. I'm hacking
Online.
the system, right? Yeah. So you want to make these things work for you, time these things, get the best deals. And even if that means not going into the shopping center, it's going to leave you in a better position than had you gone in to try and shop. Yeah.
Yeah, I see 33% of the viewers did not get a bonus, did get a bonus. 33% did get a bonus, 67% didn't get a bonus. I definitely didn't get a bonus, but anyway, so yeah, so we were talking about the shopping, and the shopping list. And I think also part of it is avoiding that sweet hour completely, if you go in person, just
For many
bypass it.
reasons.
And then talking about the online, I've actually I do a little bit of a combo thing where I've got the Checkers 60/60 app on my cell phone. And so you'll often find me in Woolworths, and then I open the Checkers app, and then I compare the price while I'm in Woolworths to see, because sometimes Woolworths is a little bit more reasonably priced, surprisingly,
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
but on random things like sugar and rice. So
Flour. Yeah.
yeah, the things people do not go to Woolworths for. And then what about ideas for gifts? Like I know my mother-in-law loves gardening, so it's a very easy thing to go to the local nursery and just get her another plant for her garden because that's something I know she's going to appreciate. And it's also not a wildly extravagant gift that she's never going to use.
Yeah, absolutely, Neesa. I think, I mean, also to maybe agree like a price limit for the gifts, if it's not just the kids that are going to get gifts, but I mean, even on that, to say now there's 100 Rand or 200 Rand limit, and then you need to get creative, and maybe a personalized gift as well. To know, your example around your mom loving gardening, like that's a very thoughtful, personalized gift that doesn't necessarily cost a lot, but it says a lot and it means a lot. So I think more things like that we can encourage each other, because it should be more around spending time together than getting the fanciest gift. And I think that's also a lesson we need to teach our children, that it's not just about getting the biggest Lego set, or that's what's going on in my household. So I mean, that's a conversation that we need to have. And I think also the other thing is, what about giving a savings account, for the kids
Yes.
for Christmas, and teaching them about that? So we've got at the Standard Bank Group, we've got an app called Stash, and it's actually something you can download and save small amounts. So there's like a nice green button, and you go press on that to save like 5 Rand or 10 Rand. It's a very nice way to get your kids into actually tangibly feeling that they are saving through engaging with the app and stashing their money every day. And in that, you help to form a habit that hopefully, I mean, over time will support them even when they're all grown up, in their adult financial life. So small things, around how do we talk to our kids? What do we say? What are the things that we actually empower them with, can be a gift this Christmas.
Absolutely. And I think I have a few apps similar to that, not the Stash one, but I found personally that it's a little bit of a dopamine rush when you see your savings going up on a little app in your hand. So it's almost like the savings game gets gamified, and I think that could work really well for the younger generation.
Very much so. So I think even as adults, like we like that. We spoke about the retailers, but we love it as well. Sorry, Fazana.
No, I wanted to say exactly that, Doret. On that point, adults will love it too. If you have a poor savings culture and you find it difficult to put those behaviors in place, the Stash app, for example, I use it myself as well. And if you link your check card to it and it rounds off your spending, I unintentionally end up spending saving a lot of money because it keeps rounding off all those differences and putting it in. And at the end of the year, I have a couple of thousand rand that has now been stashed that I can use for things like gifts. So it's a
Yeah.
way for you to put money away. And if you're not someone who's inclined to saving, you're going to put these tools in place that will help you to instill that culture and that discipline in you.
Yeah, I love that idea of the budget, setting a ceiling for the gift prices, because I think that takes a lot of pressure off a lot of people who might not otherwise admit it. Judith has some great advice. She said when it comes to gifts for children, it could be something you want, something you need, something to eat, and something to read. And I think for younger children, that really works so well. Not all of them like the something to read, but it's definitely to be encouraged. I'm a big reader, so. And I must say, Dorit, I'm so glad I'm out of those Lego years because I think Lego costs like a house bond these days.
Expensive, yeah.
No,
It's
definitely.
ridiculous.
What we actually got in my house is I've got three kids, so got an older one and then twins. So the older one this year, every time I gave them like lunch money for school, he asked me to put it into his bank account. So he did this religiously, and then I'm now after a while I'm trying to like encourage him. No, no, go and buy
Take the
something,
money.
because he just religiously asked me to save it. And what happened now in October is he had enough money to buy like his dream Lego set. I mean, it's not massive, but he had the money to do that. And now the twins are getting proper FOMO, and they also now are wanting to start saving their lunch money. But it's things like that, where you give them a different perspective, and it doesn't always have to be hardcore and serious. It can be fun as well. But I think that gifts for kids and things like that, yeah, we need to keep it light.
Farzana, one of the viewers, Faisal, wants to know where are you getting those veggies at half price, please? Can you share? I also want to know.
Uber, on Uber Eats on a Tuesday, they have market day on a Tuesday.
Oh,
And then
okay.
I get
I
my
don't have
veggies
Uber
for half
Eats back
price.
day.
Yeah. So it's a really good deal.
Okay, that's interesting. So is it almost like groceries on your Uber Eats?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even
So
know you could do that. I thought it was just for takeaways.
now there's groceries on there as well. I think there's pick it on Mr. D, there's Pick and Pay, and then you get some of the Black Friday deals on there. So you must use your apps and browse a little bit. Yeah.
Yvonne says we haven't mentioned husbands helping. We're assuming that they are helping, Yvonne, but I don't know if you mean in the kitchen or in the wallet. And then Danny says, "Oh, what about eating out over the festive season?" That's a really good one. My teenager went out with his friends after matric exams this week, and he was like, "How does it work when we split the bill? And how do we say like we don't want to spend more than what if somebody eats for like 100 rand and somebody else eats for 300 rand? Like, how do you manage those situations?" Do you want to go
Yeah,
first?
I'm gonna try. I think it comes down to again having those conversations to almost like agree up front. Okay, guys, how are we gonna do it? So each one can order whatever they want, but then on the bill you need to go and look at the actual items that you've chosen. I think sometimes it gets difficult because you get that one special friend that never checks the slip, and it just gets magically absorbed, especially if if you are a big group. So you always get that. But I think if it's a close-knit, group of friends, it's better to chat about that up front rather than waiting for when the bill comes. But I think eating out in general, I mean, if you think about what you need to spend in a restaurant versus what you could be making at home, and the price difference, there's definitely a difference in price. It takes much more effort to do it at home, but there may be easy things that you can look at over the festive period, maybe easy meals. I mean, there's lots of stuff online. Things that you can do maybe for dinner, and then you can like upcycle it again for lunch the next day. So things like that. Again, it takes a bit of planning, but once you get like a good few hacks on dinners and lunches, it's things you can use often.
And that I
Yeah,
think comes back to, those holiday memories, because David also, he says to me, like, we're a family of four. Why are you cooking so much food for Christmas Day? And I'm like, because I don't want to cook on Boxing Day.
of course. Yeah. But I just wanted to weigh in on the conversation about eating out. Again, rewards programs and hacking. So at Sanlam Group, we have this entertainer app, and there's also something that you can buy elsewhere. Buy one, get one free meals at certain restaurants, at certain
Yes.
service centers, So if you really need to, and I mean, it is something that we all enjoy now and then. So look for those kind of things, rewards and deals where you can buy one, get one free, and then splitting the bill is even more sensible because you're only really paying half of what you would have paid. So there are ways around still enjoying the things you would like to enjoy, but making the most of the system and hacking it for yourself.
So Yvonne has come back with a very emphatic, we're talking money. And I think she's talking about husbands helping with money. And I think maybe from my side, I would say, and I did this, it was actually very interesting because often we find we fall into these roles, right? Where the woman goes and we buy the groceries and we do the meals and we do the cooking and they do the eating. And so last month I said, well, you can get the groceries. And he came back and he said, do you know how much these things cost? I said, yes, I do. So I would strongly suggest send your husband out and let him do the grocery run once in a while so he can actually see, because inflation, groceries prices are changing so fast and moving up so quickly that I think it's very easy to be blasé, especially if you don't see it firsthand and you don't actually know how much is being spent.
No, spot on, spot on. I think, I mean, we spoke about the budget cleanse, and Farzana explained that, that to us. I think doing that as a couple together is maybe not always comfortable, but it's very, very good and healthy to do that because, even like fuel and that kind of stuff, we don't always realize what it mounts up to, and we don't often have the opportunity to speak about it. I mean, life is busy. There's work, there's pressures. We're running every day. So maybe that's also a good thing to think about, as the new year start, to talk about things like that. So you can actually be open and honest around, the responsibility each partner is carrying and how do you support each other and still make it work.
And then Judith wants to know, what apps do you use to find the buy one, get one free offers? I think there are apps out there, but while you think about that, Farzana, I want to say on the splitting the bill at the restaurant, there's an app called Splitwise that you can download as a group, and then it actually works out what each person pays. The other tip I gave my son was I said, well, if you're sitting down at Spur, just tell the waitress before you even order the meal, just tell the waitress we'd like separate bills, please. And then the waitress can automatically split the bill for you. And then there's no embarrassment at pay time.
Yeah, that's clever. Yeah, some of the apps, like I mentioned, Sanlam, we have the entertainer. So the entertainer app is something that you can download. There's, back in the day it was Groupon. I think it's still Groupon, or it's called something else now. There's a FOMO app. It's called FOMO. You can buy holiday vacations, you can buy massages, you can buy services like car services, pet grooming, buy one, get one free restaurant things. So there's lots of stuff available online. You Google and you'll see, you'll be amazed at the deals that you can get. Yeah.
Speaking of car services, I want to say that, when it comes to gifts, and if you do have the funds, um, it's nice to think out of the box. I really would not mind a new set of tires for Christmas. But in other years, maybe I wouldn't. But yeah, things like that, where you really know that somebody needs something rather than buying them something that's not something they actually need. Yeah. So it's pointless having an expensive perfume when I actually need money to buy tires.
Yeah. Actually, on
Although
that point, I
perfume.
think on the gifting thing, one
Yeah.
of the pressures is to give gifts, right? But I think going into this December holiday, I think we need to frame our minds to think, if I'm giving a gift, is it useful? Is it necessary? Or does it just add to the clutter of the other person's life? Because many of us sit with a lot of things when we're decluttering that someone had given to us that we're never going to use. And yes, it was thoughtful, but is it practical? So maybe one of the ways in which to give gifts this holiday is exactly as you said, be practical and necessary so that everyone's helping each other through the gift giving process instead of just creating clutter and then moving money from place to place with it not making a meaningful difference.
100%. And I think also if you are, if you're visiting family or you're going on a family holiday, sometimes that is the gift, Getting to go away is now not a cheap thing anymore. Petrol is hugely expensive. I don't even talk about flight fares. But,
Jeez.
going to spend time with your family has become the gift. It sounds awful because I mean, like, I'm your gift, but it
You
really
are.
is. It really is a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah. And
So
Neesa, sorry, maybe just to add on that, I think, I mean, it's come up now a couple of times in our chat to say, the need for conversations around money. Even if it feels a bit uncomfortable, like everybody's actually feeling the pressure. So just, speak out about it and see how you can come up together with a plan to really make this festive period like enjoyable and, that quality time that we wish that it would be. So that's very important. And then also the conversations with our kids, like spending more time with them now over the holiday period. What are some of those things you can start talking to them about to just plant a seed? We're not expecting them to be a Bill Gates tomorrow, but what are those things you can start, like just having them think about for them to be able to make good financial decisions as they grow up and into adulthood?
absolutely. And I think, for parents who are concerned about being open about money with their children, like you don't want to disclose your salary necessarily, but you can do it in other ways. I mean, for example, you could cook a meal and say to them, okay, so I used a kilogram of chicken breast, and this is how much it cost, and this is how much the rice cost, and so this is what this meal actually costs in rands, which is a different way to teach them about money without necessarily having to reveal everything. Farzana, are there any tips you would like to round us off with? We're almost ready to close off.
Yeah, two things. Just on what you said about having that conversation with your kids, I think the lady who suggested or asked about the husband, it's the same conversation, right? You need to also, like, we take control of a lot of things in the house and we don't allow our spouses to know what that detail looks like. So I think it's very important when you're doing everything to be in the detail to let them know. And then the other thing is that the things we're teaching our kids are things that we didn't learn and we're learning as we go. And just as our kids need direction from us in terms of finances, we too need that support and direction, which is why we have these webinars and also why we have financial advisors and financial institutions. So I think that one of the things that you can do for yourself as an adult is seek professional advice. Partner with professionals who are accredited to give advice, even when it comes to your budget, when it comes to your financial planning, when it comes to your risk planning, because there is a bit of risk in December, a lot more people on the road, you're traveling, you have to think about all those things. So it helps to have a professional in your corner to help you consider all your risks, plan for some of them, and then so you can live a little more vicariously and energetically without carrying all these stresses through into the new year.
Doret, do you have any last words for us? Well,
No,
for
so
this
maybe
webinar, I mean.
just to Maybe I mean emphasize the stuff that we chatted about. So it takes a bit of planning. Make sure that you start thinking about it, and get your plans in order. And we shared a lot of tips around maybe some things to think about, and then just keep track of it. So it doesn't help you have a plan, but you don't keep track on it, as we go into the festive period. So that will help you stay on top. And yeah, I think just in general, like travel safe, keep safe, enjoy, and hopefully it's a very good and festive period for everyone.
Okay, so I think from my side, some of the advice has sounded simple, but in life, I think sometimes simple is best, and that's what works actually at the end of the day. So conversation, being open and honest, keeping track of what you're doing, being cognizant of future expenses that are coming up in January, and basically just being mindful when it comes to your money. So thank you, Doret and Farzana, for joining us tonight. I hope everybody took away as much from it as I did. And thank you to the viewers who contributed to the conversation and gave us some things to ponder. And thank you to Daily Maverick for hosting us. So this is the last Daily Maverick webinar for the year. Thank you so much to Thamina and Nicole, who are behind the scenes and make it all happen.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us, Neesa. Cheers, everyone.